Hi everyone. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you a demo of how my web app works. The title of this web app is Identify Wildlife Roadkill Hotspots, and it pretty much explains the purpose of this web app, which is to identify areas with high potential for animal and vehicle collisions. So when the web app is launched, this is what the user would see. And you can actually come here to click on the My Location widget to zoom into your location, or you can actually type in an address or a place of interest, and that's what we're going to do. So we're actually going to go to Minnesota. All right. So here, now that we're zoomed to Minnesota, let me show you some of the layers that are actually part of this web app. So the red polygons that you see here and throughout the map, they actually represent the critical habitats of wildlife that are federally protected. And they are, so here it is. It's actually provided by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. Um, and it's a polygon layer. So, and then the purple points you see here, they're actually part of the 2021 USA traffic count. So essentially, it just shows you the amount of cars on the road. So here in the middle, you see there's actually a pretty high volume of cars. Also, if we zoom into this critical habitat here, if we click on it, you see that this is the critical habitat of the Canada lynx, and there's actually quite a bit of cars surrounding the borders of this habitat. The other layers that are part of this is also the USA roads, which is a line layer that features all the roads in the US. And so as a user, you can actually find out with this web app the wildlife roadkill hotspots. And you can go to the analysis widget over here, and here we actually have a number of pre-populated analysis tools. So the first one is to calculate density of roads. So to find out where you have potential wildlife roadkill hotspots, you want to know the places where you have a dense network of roads, because the more roads there are, the more likely that wildlife would come in contact with cars, and there may be like a collision that occurs. Now, besides roads, you also want to find areas where you have a high amount of cars. So those are the two key features you're looking at, right? When you're looking at around habitat, you want to really look at areas where there are a lot of cars and a lot of roads. So those places where all three intersect, that is a place where you would have a high likelihood of animal vehicle collisions, or in other words, a wildlife road kill hotspot. So let's start the analysis. So first we'll click on calculating density of roads. The input for here is all roads. You can leave this as a default. You can change this name to density of roads. I probably have to put this as, 2 or something, because I had created this layer a couple of times. Okay, and then you could keep it as this map extent. I may even zoom in a little bit, so just to make sure that we have the features that we want and we're not calculating more than we need. Okay, let's see if that works. Okay, so if this happens, and when you're actually running these tools and you get this error message, essentially it's saying that this feature service exceeds the limit of 100,000 features. So what you can do is really just zoom in more to the area of interest, like this. Okay, we're really looking at this area where you do see a higher amount of density of cars and probably roads. And we can actually try running this this calculation again. Okay, and so here we have calculated the density of the roads. It's this layer here, and it's easier to see it if we actually turn off some of the other layers, such as the traffic counts over here. And so what's interesting is that the density of road layers actually corresponds to actually the areas with high traffic counts, which is not surprising. You have more roads, also makes sense that you will have more cars. And you can actually use the swipe widget over here to actually look at the two. So if you want to swipe the new all roads density layer, could show that, see, you have the deepest purple area, which is highest density, corresponding to also where you have a lot of purple points, which correspond to the traffic counts. Okay, and then next, we're going back to the analysis tool. And so this all roads density layer, you can actually download also if as a user you want to use it further in another analysis. But going back to the main analysis page, next we want to calculate the traffic hotspots. So we want to find where you have the highest amount of traffic counts or cars. So clicking on this, we actually want to use the 2021 USA traffic count layer. Find clusters of high and low. So I usually pick most recent traffic counts because that should give you the most recent counts of how much traffic you have on each road. And then you can keep everything else the same. I give it a name also. Hotspots for most traffic counts. Probably put 2 because I probably have another layer named the same name already. Okay, use the same map extent and then run. Okay, so here we have calculated the traffic hotspots, and here is where you have a concentration of the highest amount of traffic, which is not surprising because that's actually where we saw also a lot of the purple points too. So if we actually look at the legend of this, okay, and we could zoom in, you could see that with the red spots, that is actually hotspots with a 99% confidence level. The orange is the 95%. And if we zoom out a little bit, what's interesting is that in these areas here, where you actually have high density of roads, as you could tell by the purple lines here, you actually don't really, it's actually cold spots of 90% confidence. So these areas, even though they have high density of roads, they don't really have high traffic count. So that's why it's very important to do these analysis, because they really can help identify areas in which you have both high volumes of traffic and high density of roads that are near these critical habitats. So you could actually isolate these roadkill hotspots. Okay, and then next, if we zoom out again, so we can have a better view. So next, what we want to do with this analysis widget is go back to the the home page again. Now we want to combine the two layers that we created in the first two steps. So we want to combine the road density layer and the traffic hotspot. Now the reason why we want to do this is that we want them to be on the same layer so that they can actually be further analyzed. So that's what we're going to do. You could choose an input layer. I'll choose the hotspots for most recent traffic is the one we created. We could overlay it with the all roads density 3. That's the one we created. We want points to be intersected. And then you could just maybe we'll have a shorter name such as intersection. Intersection of roads and traffic. Okay, and then we can use the same current map extent and run analysis. And a lot of these times, please be patient. You know, the analysis may actually take a little while. It also depends on your computer and how many features you're actually analyzing, but it will be completed. Okay, so this analysis is done, and we combine the two previous layers into one layer, and you could see it by these blue blue points. Now, what we want to do is the final leg of the analysis, and what that is. So we want to summarize the center and dispersion. So essentially, what you want to do is you want to find the central tendency for both these points. So essentially, you want to find the area of highest traffic count and highest road density around this critical habitat. So we're going to run this analysis. So we're going to choose this intersection of roads and traffic layer that we just created. You could check the central feature. You could also check mean and medium. I will check also the ellipse feature as well. So it kind of gives you ellipse boundaries. You could also weigh it. I'm just going to keep this sort of none for now. And then you can give it a name. I'm just going to make it simple, central tendency. And then find the folder you want to save it in, and then use the same map current and run. Okay, with the analysis done, okay, so let's actually zoom out a little bit so we can have a better look. So here the center, that's actually the center, the blue dot over there is actually the center of the points on the layer, and this is the ellipses over here. So this encompasses the area where most of the points in the layer lies. So this is the most important areas where you want to find your roadkill hotspots. So with this, you could actually either you could see that it actually corresponds to the highest points over here. So now, with this intact, you could actually pinpoint the areas for your roadkill hotspots. And we could actually turn off some of the layers so that we can have a better look at it. So this is the ellipse layer here. We could keep that. Intersection of roads over here, hotspots over there, and then the density. So this is the area that is most important that we're interested in. And as we can see, this the center point corresponds to the layer that we just created, which is the intersection of the density of roads and also the high count for traffic. So you can actually use both layers as sort of confirmation of where the hotspots are. So if we actually, so it seems as though the southern point of the habitat is where it's most important. So if we had to zoom into this layer, into this area, along this border, the southern border here is probably a really good place to implement mitigation measures to prevent animal and vehicle collisions. So after we have these points, we could actually check off the USA road so it's better, it's easier to see this part. So now we could actually use, we could actually manually pinpoint areas of where we have potential wildlife roadkill hotspots. If we look at this layer again, if we bring up the layer list, you could see that there is this layer here called Identify Roadkill Hotspot. This is a edible feature layer, point layer actually, where you can actually add points. So if we look at the widgets over here, this widget over here, Add Roadkill Hotspot, if you click on it, and you could choose the feature layer, Identify Roadkill Hotspots, and you choose this icon over here. You can go along this area here where we've identified potential hotspots for roadkill and place this pin. So then now you could place more pins as well, maybe along this area as well. And then let's see if we zoom out, if we see anything else. So within this ellipse here, these areas are also maybe potential roadkill hotspots. Okay. And if we actually turn off some of the layers, so we can turn this off, this one off, and this one off too. Let's see if we zoom in. Okay, those are the points that we just inputted over there. So now that we have these points on this feature layer, you can actually download it and you can use it further for more analysis. So you know with these points here, you see that these are the areas of potential roadkill hotspots. So there you have it. So you've identified some potential areas for wildlife roadkill hotspots. But that's not it. There's actually more to this web app. So if we actually zoom out a little bit, you could see, okay, so that's our sort of area of interest. So there are other widgets of that allow you to do other stuff with more capabilities. Now let's say, you know, this point here or this point here is not correct. You wanted to delete it. So you can actually use this other widget of select. And this widget actually lets you do a lot of stuff. It has all the different layers. And we're interested in the identify roadkill hotspots because that's what the pins are on. So we can first deselect all the layers and then select this one. And then if you come to these three dots area, it actually, oh, you have to select first. So you want to select this point here. And you could use different selects. I have the rectangle selected. So let's say we have this area selected and now it's highlighted in the blue. You could click on these 3 points and then you could perform all these different actions. You could zoom to this point and then what you can do is also edit it. So let's say I want to edit it. I want to actually just delete it because it's not something I want in my feature layer anymore. So I could delete and done. So let's zoom out again. Okay, and then another feature of this web app is that it allows you to add your own data. So you can add data from your organization, your content, ArcGIS Online. And this is actually very useful because in this web app, it only comes default with the 4 layers that I showed you. Now, and especially with the critical habitats, this is from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, and it only features critical habitats of federally protected species. But there are also protected species on state and local level. So perhaps you're in a state that has your own state level critical habitat. You could import that into this web app, perform the same analysis to find the wildlife roadkill hotspots for the critical habitats, around the critical habitats at your state level. So there's actually a lot of uses with this web app. And most importantly, after these points are identified and you have a better understanding of um, where are the areas near habitats that you would likely see a high incidence of animal and vehicle collision, then this would really help conservationists and also scientists and also government officials to implement mitigation measures. And these measures can be as simple as just adding extra road signs or decreasing the speed limit in those areas, or even something more elaborate, such as building wildlife corridors or natural corridors for animal migration, safe animal migration. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and have a general idea how to use this web app and that it would be helpful to you. Thank you.